and welcome to Vantagepoint's Maximizing Your Future with SAP Planning, Reporting, and Analysis. Thank you for joining us as we unwrap this highly anticipated topic. We are a service and sales partner for SAP North America in financial planning, budgeting, consolidation, reporting, and analytics. Our thought leadership goal is to be the #1 source in the industry for content and collaboration for all things enterprise performance management. We hope to bring clarity to an ever-evolving technology landscape by staying focused on the financial process that drives success for your organization. Enjoy the webinar.
Okay, it's 3 o'clock, and I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Give a few more minutes maybe, or not a few more minutes, just a few more seconds for a few last minute folks to join in. We'll go ahead and get started today. Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Gary Young and I will be your host today. Today we thank you again for joining us on the webinar series, the continuing series that we have on maximizing your future with SAP Planning, Reporting, and Analytics. Today's topic is specifically on hybrid planning and will be brought to us by Greg Wright. Greg comes with over 25 years of experience in the EPM space, based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and is the CEO of Vantagepoint Business Solutions. Vantagepoint focuses on the office of the CFO with a team of CPAs and MBAs that focus on delivering EPM solutions such as BPC and BOBJ Cloud. So with that said, there's a slide that we'll go to next that will actually show just administratively that we will allow you to ask questions throughout the session, or would ask and enjoy you guys asking questions throughout the session. So feel free to go to the questions section and anytime during the presentation raise the questions and we will answer on the spot. At the end, if time permits, we will also allow you to ask, raise your hand, and we can open up the mic for further questions as well, but we can get into dialogue if time permits. Greg will provide a presentation, a few slides in presentation form, and then dive right into a demonstration on today's topic of hybrid planning. So with that, I will turn it over to Greg Wright.
Thank you, Gary. So just welcome to everybody. Glad you were able to join us for the webinar this afternoon. The focus today is going to be extending BPC to the enterprise, and the way we're going to be doing that is with BusinessObjects Cloud. The acronym, by the way, is BOC, and if anybody knows a lot about SAP, there are lots of those, so that could change next quarter. But for now, BOC. So welcome, and I hope that you enjoy the presentation. In this session, what we will be talking about is some of the out-of-the-box functionality that comes with BusinessObjects Cloud on how it links directly with BPC. We're going to show how you can extend BOC into your existing BPC implementations. I will also talk about some real-world case studies of clients who are using BusinessObjects Cloud for both planning and analytics, as well as our clients who are already extending BPC to the cloud. And then what I'd like to do is drop into the software. So we'll keep the PowerPoints to a minimum, and we'll focus more on the presentation. I think that's where a lot of folks get the value. So a quick overview on BusinessObjects Cloud. The whole notion about BOC is really to provide a platform to the business user community across the enterprise. So it's not really a tool as it's sold as a tool, it's really sold as a platform and about an opportunity that you can take information from multiple sources. We'll be talking about BPC today, but really then extending that data to whoever it may be that's appropriate with any enterprise, or frankly with outside of the enterprise. It may be your customers or it may be your vendors. So it does run on the HANA Cloud platform, and with the core functionality you will get data connectivity, visualizations, and that's a big plus. You get both planning and visualizations in the same environment, It also comes with collaboration, with advanced analytics, such as predictive analytics, which has now just been released, and then auditing and monitoring. So those are the core functionalities that come with BusinessObjects Cloud. We're going to focus on the planning connectivity and a little bit on BI, but not really. That'll be a separate session, which is enough to merit multiple sessions, frankly, of webinars. So we'll be talking about the connectivity, but with cloud analytics, you get your BI components. The BI refers to exploration of moving around and exploring your data, as well as what they call storyboards, which is similar to what people would refer to as dashboards. The idea being really that the business is about creating stories that they can understand what's happening with the business, and then even present those stories to the people that need to understand. Planning, of course, is very strong, including very intense allocation calculations. Because we're running on HANA, calculating through large volumes very quickly is part of the natural feature that comes with BOC. Predictive, like I said, has just been released. It comes as part of the planning component, and you can actually license it separately along with your BI. And then governance, risk, and compliance will be coming across in more detail later on in the product. Ultimately, this is the same platform that is used to deliver the digital boardroom, which has been causing great interest and stir within the marketplace. So that's BOC in a shell, and truly at the end of the day, as a platform, what SAP are looking to provide is all the analytics capabilities in one product. That is to say, instead of having to go to a desktop product and a web product and then maybe an external SAP product and then trying to pull all that data together to make sense of it, they want all the analytics to happen here on BusinessObjects Cloud. They also want to provide a consumer-grade user experience, and what that means is robust and strong, that it's reliable and it's intuitive. It should happen in the cloud and only in the cloud. And what I mean by that is, although you can have a hybrid solution, which is what we're talking about doing today, hybrid being you got some on-prem and you've got the cloud solution, the whole BusinessObjects Cloud resides only in the cloud. You can use an embedded or standalone solution. What that really means is you can use BusinessObjects simply as a dashboarding tool where you can collect data from multiple different sources, load it into BOC, and you can use it just like that. You don't have to connect to an SAP data source at all. The embedded is, it's going to go against HANA, it'll go against BW, it'll go against BPC, and it'll go against multiple different other data sources. But embedded would be that you've got an existing application that you're going to point against, and this will run against that too. And then, of course, provide the high performance in the real-time platform, which is what HANA provides us. So the idea here is that it's a one-stop shopping, if you would, for all your capabilities that are focused on the business consuming. The whole idea for BOC, used for planning, is that it is to plan simpler. So it's people-centric. What that means is it's intuitive, it's using state-of-the-art technology, and it's easy to use. On top of that, there's a lot of collaboration that you can take place within the tool. So having to reach out to people with an email or a separate IM tool no longer needed. You can do all your instant messaging and communication within the tool in the context of the information that you're talking about. Analytics embedded means that it's got strong analytics capabilities, and it sure does. They're being enhanced all the time, and literally all the time. There is a new release of the product every 2 weeks, which makes it very competitive, fiercely competitive actually, and some great intuitive analytics, which will be handled in a separate webinar. And it's very future-oriented. What that means is we are using state-of-the-art, we are using cloud, and we are using HANA. But SAP has actually created the product from scratch. It's created using the HANA at the back end, as I mentioned, and it's built in the cloud for the cloud. So it's not window dressing. It's not some kind of front to an old archaic back end. It is using the latest technology built from the ground up. So how does it work with SAP BPC? This is what we call the hybrid scenario. So if you can imagine, folk already have BPC, which is a strong, robust planning and consolidation reporting application. Excel is its front end, and it's widely adopted and easily adopted by finance. That typically would be an on-premise solution. So that's that circle in the middle. It's a lot of discipline, and it's handled by finance, corporate. What we've discovered, however, is that as BPC grows within organizations, it's a great modeling tool and a great analytical tool. And so it starts used outside of finance, which is great. It's good for that. But in a planning scenario, if people want to create a strategic business plan, or they want to create a line of business plan, so for example, it may be a sales plan that would feed into your financial plan, or it may be a marketing plan, strategic plan, maybe manufacturing plan, demand sales forecasting, for example, all different kinds of examples which we would term a line of business. That would be done, could be done in BusinessObjects Cloud. And so it gives the business users for that particular line of business the capability and opportunity to create their own model in the cloud. No hardware required, no IT required. It's available for them in the cloud, and we'll build one of these as part of the demonstration. And then that model, once they've finished with coming up with the appropriate data, can then be downloaded or interacted with BPC as the on-premise solution. So what we're going to talk about today is the linking of the cloud model with a BPC model, and we're going to build a cloud model directly from BPC. I'll do that with you as part of the demonstration, and then send data back and forth. And that's very key. You can send data either way, from BPC to the cloud, and again from the cloud back to BPC. So it's very interactive. So some example business case on when to use or why to use the cloud. Certainly there's the role of cloud versus on-prem. And as cloud is becoming stronger and stronger, we are finding a lot of clients are saying they have got enough on-prem. They IT already focused on what they are supporting. They don't want to support something else specific for an application focus. And so cloud is a good option for that. On-prem is great, and we still have a lot of clients on-prem where they prefer to keep all the data in-house. And IT are happy to set up the environment, whether it be on SQL Server from Microsoft, or maybe it would be on NetWeaver for a large SAP client base. By the way, an SAP client base can also run Microsoft as part of that on-prem solution. And having said that, we do offer host services for folks who want on-prem solutions, but want to still maintain and manage by IT. So the technical infrastructure and support is important. If folks do not want the infrastructure, or the cost of the infrastructure, or the maintenance of the infrastructure, cloud is a good option. You leverage HANA right away. So we've got some clients who are not actually SAP clients at all, but they wanted the HANA solution. And so they've gone that route. They get HANA right off the bat by going with BOC, but didn't have to invest in SAP. We've got other clients who actually are SAP clients, but they're not ready to move to HANA yet. And this is a way that they can leverage BPC, or not BPC, but the clients we have got have leveraged the BPC on-prem. They're not ready yet to go to HANA or to S4, and so they've decided to go with BOC. And then when they move on to HANA, what they will contemplate doing is either moving the models back into S4, or they will just simply point their cloud BOC models back to the HANA backend, which is probably what will happen, because that would be the most intuitive. So you get HANA right away without having to invest in HANA. A line of business, you may have multiple other people within your organization who want to use the capabilities of multidimensionality, strong analytics, or strong reporting, but do not want to either take BPC out to the field or want to use Excel. This is a great way that line of business can actually still get that modeling and planning capability without having to use BPC, although that interaction is still there. Another example is international. We have a lot of very large clients, and rolling out Excel with language and version desktops is always a concern for IT. If you've got a large international user community, or frankly just a large user community, and you want to do data collection or reporting, this is a good way that you can extend those capabilities to your user community without having to worry about rollout and security, etc., on local desktops that can access BPC this way. And then the other one is just really generational acceptance. And what I mean by that is that as we're finding people are graduating and moving into the working ranks, and there are the 30 or younger, this for them is just the most intuitive thing to do. In fact, general feedback to us has been that they really enjoy not being in Excel. They prefer being in the cloud or being on an app. This does run on the iPhone, that you can look at the data and move as you would with any other app, and not have to work within Excel. So generational acceptance is one of those other areas that should be considered. And the whole beauty about the solution is, with a hybrid, you can have a mix of both. So you can have folk who want to use Excel, and folk who want to use the cloud, can use the cloud. So a couple of case studies. This one over here I'll talk about was a client who were using Excel for their budgeting. They outgrew Excel. They were growing with leaps and bounds, and they decided that they had to get a real robust enterprise tool. So Excel is great, right? Everyone believes that, and it's a great personal productivity tool, but it's really not a great enterprise productivity tool where it's shared by multiple people. So they outgrew Excel. They wanted to look for an application that would support the business process, but really also help to empower the business to be more productive in what they were doing and to be more accountable in what they were doing. So they really wanted to hand the keys, if you would, over to the business and let them run their process and take care and own their data, as well as managing their business, that is to say, the analytics. They want to use state-of-the-art technology and improve their collaboration. So they realized people spoke with each other as part of the planning process. They realized that people want to discuss, results and assumptions, and so they like that collaboration aspect within BOC. They wanted a solution that was built on the cloud. They did not want an on-prem solution. They liked HANA, and they wanted to leverage the power of HANA, and they liked the fact that both the planning and the analytics were in the same application. And I think that's really key. We're seeing it happen more and more, where the business users, who are typically the folk who are entering data as part of the budget, are also the consumers of the reports of that very same data. In other words, they want to see how they're doing to actuals and to plans and to budgets and to last year. They don't just want to enter the budget and then forget about the process. So that's one of the real world case studies. We've got another client. They use BPC, and they are using the HANA calculation to do allocations, but then they write the answers back into BPC, so they can do a lot more very robust and sophisticated calculations and allocations that a BPC would do it, but it was just taking longer to do. So I'm going to drop right now from the PowerPoint, and I'm going to drop into do a demonstration for you. So the first thing I've opened over here is Excel, and I'm going to build a report so we can look at some of the data in BPC. So I've logged into BPC. I'm in 10.1 running on NetWeaver. I'm already have logged on. As you can see, I've got log off over here, and I'm in my EPM ribbon pane. So I'm just going to say, let's go to new report. And I'm going to keep the report really, really simple, because all I want to show you is how we can build a model, look at the data, change data on the cloud, and then submit that data back to BPC and look at those changes, so you can see what that means. So I'm going to take accounts, I'm going to put them as my rows, and I'm going to make an assumption, by the way, that you are already familiar with BPC. But what I'm doing is I'm putting dimensions, which are simply grouping of similar ways of looking at data. So time, for example, is made up of January, February, March. It rolls into a total year as my columns. I put my accounts, my general ledger accounts as my rows, and the rest of all my other dimensions, which is a breakdown or granularity, if you would, of my data, I'm going to put over here as headings. So I'm going to say, okay, let's go ahead and save that. And I've now built a report that is showing me, I'm looking at planned data for South Africa for a product. I'm looking in US dollars in a product mode. I'm looking at 2016 data from my 4 quarters. Let me open up my Q1 so we can look at that data. And I'm going to open up operating income. And I'm going to open up gross margin. All right, so the key number to look at over here is I'm looking at 3998. In fact, let's just put some formatting on here real quick, just so we can look at the number. I'm looking at, for total sales in January, I'm looking at 3.9 million. And you can see January, February, March are all the same number. I'm looking at Q1 over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build a model in BusinessObjects Cloud using the same BPC model. This model is called App Shell Test, and I'm in the planning model over here. So that's what I'm going to use to build. So I'm going to log on over here to my browser. You can see I'm just in Chrome, and I'm going to log on to BusinessObjects Cloud. Right, so now I'm in BusinessObjects Cloud. I have to log on to BusinessObjects. So I say log on, username and password. Works very similar than BPC in that same respect. You've got roles and you've got tasks that you can assign. So all very, very similar. All right, so it's logging on. The first thing that happens when you log on to BusinessObjects Cloud is that it opens up a home screen. And your home screen is a screen that you define of all the appropriate and relevant reports that you want to see when you open up the cloud. So what's going to happen over here is I don't have my home screen set up, but this is what happens if you don't have your initial dashboard set up. That's all configurable by the user. When they go and look at a story, if they like a report or a chart and they want to see that again, with the first thing when they open up, they simply right mouse click and they say, actually they would just simply pin it to their home screen. Okay, so I'm now in BusinessObjects Cloud. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new model. So I'm going to go to Modeler. So just a quick overview. These 3 lines over here open up all the things I can do with BusinessObjects Cloud. On the right-hand side over here, you can see who I am, if I've got any notifications on the top right-hand side over here, if I need any help that I want to go into, and then if there are any conversations, etc., that I want to look at. So if I click on this little button over here real quick, just to show you any conversations I may have had, I can go back and look at any point in time, and I can delete them as well if I wanted to. So let me get rid of that. Build my modeler. So I'm going to go into a new model, and I'm going to say I want to create a new model, and I want to give it a name. Well, a new model. I want to use that model using a data source called using data source from SAP BPC. So I choose that, and the first thing it says to me is, which system do you want to be using of your BPC? So I'm going to choose Vantagepoint. Now, there is a connector that has to get set up between HANA Cloud and BPC, whatever my source system is. This is functionality that SAP do provide to you. So I've set one up over here called Vantagepoint. So HANA connector back to BPC. So once I choose that, it comes back and says, well, you can look at all these different applications. I'm going to choose App Shell Test. Oh, by the way, I can look at all these different models. So I'm going to choose planning, because that was one I just showed you a moment ago when we looked at that report. The model name over here, just so we can find on top of all the listing, I'll call it and the description over here will be webinar on BPC link. And if I could just put an I over here and maybe keep my uppercase to be consistent, we'll do that. Notice over here, I can make it not read-write. I could actually just have it as a read-only. What that means is people would not be able to submit data back to BPC. Actually, there would be read-only period, but they would not be able to send data back to BPC. They would only be able to look at the data and work with the data in the cloud. So I'm going to leave it planning enabled because I do want to send data back to BPC. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to edit my mapping. My mapping really is what is used in order to define which dimension is linked with which dimension. So you'll notice over here on the left-hand side are all my dimensions in BPC. On the right-hand side are all my dimensions over here linked that are going to be created for me in BusinessObjects Cloud. Because I'm doing this as a generic, BOC gives me a very self-generated account name that is available for other models, but it's not very descriptive. If I wanted to, I can actually go and change this name. In this case, I'm going to leave it just the way it is. You're also given an account type over here. So an account is an account type, and like BPC, it means it's got some intelligence built to it. We'll talk about that later. Is it a generic one? Is it a version dimension? Is it an organization dimension? So we've got, or is it a time dimension? We've got multiple different dimension types, and each one of them have their own built-in intelligence to make the model intuitive, quick and easy to develop. Okay, so let's leave it like that for now. What I am going to do though is I'm going to say I don't want to bring across all the categories that I've got within BPC. So I've got actuals of budget rates, actuals of last year's ownership, etc. I really only want to bring over my actuals, and I want to bring over my plan. And so by selecting those, you can see it's put them on the right-hand side over here for actuals and plans of what I've selected. I'm now going to go in, and I say OK to that. And I'm now also going to go look at my time, because I don't want to bring over maybe 10 years worth of data. I really want to only bring over 2016. That's maybe the year I want to plan for. So you can see the number of years of data I've got within BPC, and if I expand these, you would expect it to do exactly as it does, which is to show the parent-child relationship. Close this down, and let's go to 2016. By the way, once I do that, it'll put it over here. If I wanted to, I could actually bring over just a period, or so for example, just a quarter, or I could just bring over 1 month or 3 months, whatever it may be. I'm going to bring over the whole year. So I'll say OK. And now I've got my selection set. I'm going to go ahead and start to create my model. So I'm going to say go ahead and import my model. So it starts to look at my dimensions, and then it'll show them to me up on my screen. And so you'll see I'm now in a webinar modeler. I've got time and categories. I'm looking at 2006 January to 2017 December. So it's brought me 2 years worth, although it's only going to bring me actuals for 2000. Sorry, it defaulted to these being what the same time dimension I have, but it'll only bring up the data for 2016. If I don't want to have all this back this far, I can actually modify this to say which year I want to start in. I'm going to hold data at the monthly level. Over here, I'm going to go look at my account dimension. I'll show you this while we're in here. It brings me a list of every account that I had chosen, because that's what I said I wanted. So if you're familiar with BPC, you'll get to see the ID, the description, the account type, and that's one of those things that are very specific to the account dimension. So if I go look at my account dimension, that brings over, is it an income? Is it an expense for my P&L? Is it an asset, a liability or equity for my balance sheet? Or is it a non-financial account, such as headcount, or some form of metric that doesn't fit into any one of these financial account types. So there are all kinds of things over here, including calculations and intercompany eliminations and scaling and all different kinds of things, which we won't go into today. But I do want to show you that it's taken the dimensionality directly from BPC and it's pulled it into my BusinessObjects cloud model. So now I'm going to save this model. So this is saving the structure. And now I'm happy with the structure, so I could have made some modifications, descriptions, added members, etc. that I wanted to. And now what it's going to do is it's going to go and pull the data in that I selected as part of my mapping in order to load that into BPC. All right. So it loaded 2,000 records. I hope, oh, here it is. 2,160 lines were loaded. And so it gives you a quick message on that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select my model. And this is what we looked at earlier, right? So now this has been saved and everything is as I wanted it to be. So so that was just a validation. But by the way, I don't have to look at this layout if I don't want to. It's just a preview. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into a story, and I want to look at the data that was created. So I'm going to create a new story, and I'm going to call it a underscore webinar. That's what we called our model. And it says, do I want to import data? So I don't have to have a model against this. Do I want to add a canvas? And what that really means is it's kind of like a live PowerPoint, which allows you to drill and orientate and create charts, etc. Or do I want to add a grid? And that's really what I want to do. I want to work with some numbers. So the first thing I do when I add the grid is I say, okay, now I want to add an object on my grid. The object is from an existing model. My existing model is called a webinar, and I say okay. It looks at my master data just as I would within any tool, and it puts me a first pass on what I am looking at on my report over here. So I'm looking at actuals. There is a big difference between how BusinessObjects Cloud and BPC work with data from a category perspective. Categories over here are actuals, but I've got actual and plan version within actuals. And what actuals means is actuals is held at a monthly level, and that's how I wanted this to be. And that was defined in my initial screen I showed you when I looked at the time dimension. So look at version over here to compare these back to BPC. So what I want to do is I want to work in a portion of my data. So the way to do that is I have to create what we call I have to make a copy and make it into what's called a private version. So I'm going to pop in over here, and I'm going to say I want to make a copy of plan, and I want to call it plan. Let's call it plan underscore A, and say okay. And now what that's done, it will add it over here. This will allow me to write data back, but this will not. And I want to change some numbers over here and then send them back to BPC. That's the purpose of the webinar today. So that's what we'll be doing. So what I'm going to do is orientate this to be very similar to what I had in my report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what I want running across and down. The first thing I want to do is I want to add time as a column. So I'm going to choose time. I think, and I'm going to make a selection over here. No, not over here. I can open up this all, and I can open up 2016. And so here's my quarters. And so you'll see how I can do my drilling. If I open up operating expense, income, and I go down to gross margin, and I open up total sales, you can see how I'm able to drill down and see what's going on. So the next thing I want to do is I want to take category off my column. So I'm going to just hit X over here. And by doing so, it will move it to one of my filters. I want to work in actuals plan A. So I could have built this all before the presentation, but I wanted you to see the process you would go through in order to create a template, which could be predefined, and then also at the same time then to submit some numbers back. So, all right, we're in time. And the other thing I want to do, I want to add another filter over here for my entity, because I really want to look at South Africa. That was the number we were looking at earlier. All right, let's open up this again. In fact, I probably could have put a filter over here and just said that, but we're in here now, so we're there. Very good. So here's my third-party sales. Here's my 3.9 and 3.9 and 3.9. And I'm looking at Plan A. I'm looking at South Africa. I'm looking at periodic. Let me see if there are any other filters in here we should be adding. Intercompany, audit trail. Audit trail probably would be good. We probably want to be looking at input. So let's do that. And I think the rest is fine. I think it was US dollars we were looking at earlier. So let's just choose US dollars. All right, good. So as you can see, this is like how, if I go back to my Excel sheet, this is like my heading, right, is what I was doing on my right-hand side over there. And then I'm going to orientate these the same way around. So I'm here looking at South Africa for plan, for total intercompany for product A. So I'll probably need to go and look at that. But ultimately, I want to look, here's my 3.988 that I want to be changing. So let's go back to our report over here. Oh, look, here's my 3.88, just like what we had before. So with BusinessObjects Cloud, I can now enter numbers directly in here, or I can actually do a spread. So I want to just say, no, well, I want to drop this by 10%. So I type minus 10% with, oh, am I in total sales? Let me just exit that one out. I want to be over here, right, in third-party sales. I want to drop this by 10% for the quarter. When I say enter, what it does is it says, well, what numbers have changed? And it makes them all yellow. So what it's done is it spread the change equally to January, February, March, which then also caused total sales to be recalculated, which caused gross margin to be calculated, operating income, and then ultimately net income. And that's why all those have gone yellow for each of the months as well. So that was an easy spread that just happens intuitively as part of BusinessObjects Cloud. I can now, if I want to, go and write these and put whatever number I want. But let's just say that I'm happy with these numbers. So now the number is 3592800 as opposed to what it was, which was 39888. Okay, so those are the numbers over here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these and I'll just paste them down over here. Make sure I'm outside of the report. All right, that's the number that included changing. That wasn't a good idea. Let me just check that now. That's outside of the report. When I do a refresh, then this would have been refreshed from over here from the 39, which I didn't want to happen. All right, 88000. All right, that's the number that we were changing. So let me just check that now. That's outside the report. When I do a refresh, then this would have been refreshed from the model, which I didn't want to happen. All right, good. So now what I've got to do is, in the same place where I had worked with this, I now have to go to publish this. What that means is it's available for other people to see, and it needs to be available as a public version in order for Cloud for Planning or Cloud for BusinessObjects Cloud to send us back to BPC. So I can either publish as a new version or I can update an existing version, and that's what I want to do. I want to update my plan with those numbers that I've just created. So now I've done that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back into my modeler and I'm going to send these numbers back to BPC. All right, so here's webinar, and whoops, back to Modler. Here we're in the webinar, and I'm going to now send. See, this is import data. I can also export data, and I'm now going to export my data to BPC. It says which model you want. I want to use a webinar. I chose it there, that's why I put it there. If I didn't choose anything, it would still let me select on the pull down. I am going to select which BPC system, the same HANA connector I used before. I'm going to go from app shell test back to planning. And by the way, I don't have to send everything back if I don't want to. So I can edit my mapping just like what I did before. And I can choose what I want to send back. For the interest of time, I'm going to just leave it as it is, and I'm going to say export. It's looking at what data I've selected as part of my filtering, which I didn't change, and it's going to send back all the data. Notice it transferred back 2,160 cells. That's what we expected because that is what we had created, right? That's what we pulled in. I just want to mention while we're here that I clicked on the right-hand side that said resource. It does that because it actually sets up a process that you can run. As a scheduled process. So if I say run, I can run it now, but actually I can run this as a scheduled process as well. I don't have to run it just like this. So as a one-time event. All right, well I hit run by mistake there, so it's going to reload back from BPC into the cloud, which should be the same data. So let's go back now to BPC, and I'm going to say let's do a refresh. So I'm going to pop in over here. I'm going to say just a refresh. I'm actually kind of expecting this Q1 to recollapse, but let's see what happens. And let's just expand it out again. So look at the quarters, and you'll notice now that when I drop down on operating income, gross margin, that my third-party sales is now that 359,800. It is no longer that 3.9 million that we had before. All right. So that was what I was going to show you is went to BPC. We looked at what the number was, which was at 3.98. We created a model using standard out-the-box functionality. We went in to build a story where we created an input template. We modified numbers, and then we were able to send them back to BPC without doing any coding, without doing any form of customization. It's standard out-the-box functionality from SAP. So really, 7 points to take home in wrapping up the webinar is the BusinessObjects Cloud is built on the cloud for the cloud. It leverages the power of HANA, which allows for incredibly fast top-down planning as well as bottom-up. So BPC is great with bottom-up. It's fine with top-down, but you've got to set that up. Because we're using a HANA on BusinessObjects Cloud, it intuitively understands the top-down, and that's what I showed you when we modified a quarter and it spread it down to the month. And also, if I'd been at a company or total a product or whatever it would have been level, it would have spread it down across all the dimensions, not just what we saw on the front end. It would have spread across the whole model and kept everything in sync. So it leverages the power of HANA. It's very fast. It does great top-down as well as bottom-up. It's a platform that is related. It does all the related processes in one platform. So it's really just a platform where it does your analysis. We didn't go into that. That's a separate webinar, as I mentioned. It does planning. We didn't really get into it either. And it's got predictive. So it's all built in. The predictive analysis is all built in to the same platform that you can leverage large volumes of data and still get the performance that you're looking for. It integrates easily into technical environments, whether it be a standalone on the cloud solution or it be a hybrid solution that interacts with existing data on-prem or, frankly, existing data that is off-prem. It's a good cloud solution that's got predefined pipes, if you would, into multiple different sources, including things like Salesforce.com. Reports are built to tell us a story, and so that's why there's this notion of a story that is comprised of multiple objects. I showed you just a grid object, but you can have all different kinds of objects that go in there. And by the way, story can have sources from multiple different places. There are regular updates in the cloud currently every 2 weeks, so enhancements just keep coming. And there is a public or a private cloud offering for BusinessObjects Cloud. And so that means if you would like to have and if you're just a tenant on a public cloud, it's still secure, and everyone gets the same versioning. If you want your own private cloud offering, you can do that. It's got its own pricing associated to it, but then you can work with SAP on when versions are being updated, etc., enhancements are being pushed through to your release. So if there are any questions, this is a good time to type in the questions in your in the questions option, or if you've got any other things you would like to do, you can raise your hand as well, and so we can see that you've got a question that you can type in. Gary, I'll turn it over to you for this.
Yeah, Greg, thanks, and thank you for sharing the time today and the insights on the hybrid model, and look forward to answering any questions that folks have. We've been able to answer some throughout the session, so at this point I'm not seeing anything in the queue. So we'll take that as questions have all been answered. There is the opportunity for those that want to raise their hand. If there's specific dialogue that they want to have, we can certainly open up and have an open discussion. In the absence of that, Greg, we will at the end also provide, as Greg's just already done, contact information for myself and for Greg that we can always have a conversation after the session ends here today. So again, I just will assume, based on the fact that we've had questions throughout and there's nothing in the queue, that questions are answered. Let me finish by saying that, Greg, again, thank you, and thank you to all the attendees for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the session and pulled some nuggets and some insights out that you can use, and that know that we will be sending out, and you will receive an email from us regarding today's information on today's topic, as well as inviting you to the additional webinars in this series. We hope to see you in upcoming industry events as well. There is a substantial amount of industry events happening starting in September all the way through December. We will be presenting at almost all of them, from the Business Planning and Strategies Bootcamp that will take place throughout each of the October, November, December. There'll be a total of 5 sessions in 5 different cities around the globe. We'll also be presenting at Reporting and Analytics in Orlando, November 2nd and 4th. We'll be presenting and being involved in Tech Ed in Vegas on September 19th and 23rd, or through the 23rd, and then BI and Analytics in New Orleans from October 17th through the 20th. So just wanted to make you aware of those upcoming events. If you have a need or information, desire for any information beyond that, we'd be glad to share what those events are and the topics that we will be presenting on as well. And we'd be happy to also just pull some time aside and talk to you one-on-one in a conversation, or provide additional client stories around the topic that Greg talked on today. So a lot of ways for us to connect. We, again, thank you for your time and look forward to continuing to serve you in ways of bringing insights and knowledge and wisdom to you through sessions like this. So with that said, thank you and have a good afternoon.